We are 1/3 of the way through the fantasy football season. How would drafts go if they happen today? We run this mother back on a new episode of the podcast. So pull up a chair and enjoy the program.
Cause I've been in tune, out of touch, coming off the bench, trying to shake the funk, check your stat line, see who's up, that over under hit too clutch.
And I'm trying to avoid getting carried away with the jet sweep, sleeping on a trick play, predicting all of my moves like they seen every play. And so I'm running it back, head down, get out of my way. And it's for the law with only one thing to do. I guess I'll say a prayer and put it all on the line for you. What they don't know, something they haven't seen. I find a gap on the screen and hit them right in between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. Just one thing to say, yeah, what they don't know, something they haven't seen. I'm off that mean Joe Green, it got me fading between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is October 17th, 2023. And what some people are calling a bottom five program on the internet is back with you. I am Seth Wilcock, joined by my co-host, the muscle and the brains behind IBT, a man who should be running for office in the great state of Texas. He's Eric Romoff. What's up, Mr. Romoff?
Man, I'm now distracted by contemplating my political future in the great state of Texas. We've got some pretty strong lobbies out here, so I don't know if I can make my way through it, but I can definitely make my way through week 7. We call that a segue.
Let's go, baby. And tonight we are also joined by our sponsor turned friend. He is the guy slinging Toyotas down in Memphis, Tennessee. He's got Tacomas. He's got Tundras. He's got 4Runners. He was once pumping out Christian rock radio music across this great globe, and he's now offering fantasy football advice over at the Fantasy Football Advice Network. He's Tyler Bradley. What's up, Tyler?
What's up, man? You didn't have to put me on blast. I've kept the whole Christian rock thing secret to the fantasy football community until tonight. So if you're tuned in to this bottom five, but not bottom five program, you just found out some good stuff.
Hell yeah. I apologize. I had no idea that you were doing a little Ham Montana thing with this. Do you know any Creed, Tyler? That is the question. Do you know any Creed?
I do know Creed. I'm not a Creed fanatic, but I do know Creed.
That is the general consensus around here, but we appreciate having you on the program either way. And this is maybe one of my favorite shows of the season, guys. We're going to be redrafting the top 24 picks as if we were playing from week 7 on. Then we're going to get some in the scope. The waiver wire to begin with is not great. So some of our deeper options for you to scoop the week 7 waiver wire or the week 8 waiver wire, not that great. It feels like you're almost at like a high school party with a 6-pack and one little nug of weed, and there's 7 or 8 of you. Someone's not leaving happy. Someone's not leaving happy when they wake up on that waiver wire tomorrow. But we got you guys all that. Also, some from the forum. We're going to get to your questions later in the show over there from fantasyfootballadvice.com and right here in the chat as well. So if you have any, put them in and we'll answer those later on in the show. And we are also joined on the program tonight by one of my best friends, a man who took a bullet for me in the Guillotine League in the office side of things this week, Kyle Scott. Kyle, thank you for losing for me. That was very valiant, and you didn't need to do that.
Hey man, if anyone ever needs someone to score very few points in a fantasy football game, I'm the guy to call.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And now I'm going to go and spend all my fab on your Travis Kelce. So you're always looking out for me, Kyle. Every time there's some shit going down, I know who to call. It's Mr. Kyle Scott. So thank you once again, my friend. All right. And guys, we're gonna be jumping into it right here. But we want to get to the IBT family in the chat. Yo, what's up, Connor? Thanks for tuning in. We got Albert saying good evening, IBT. What's up, Albert? Thanks for joining us tonight, man. And we got HoopTube saying you're next, Seth. Calling his shot. Listen, I should have been out this
Damn.
week. Last week, I was setting my waivers after this program, probably about midnight or so. I'm on the living room floor, just laying out, stretching out so I wouldn't fall asleep, like laying in bed
As
doing
one
them.
does.
Yeah, as one does. And guess what? I fell asleep setting waivers. Didn't get to set any for that
God.
league. Luckily, I made the ESPN waivers, so I was up by like 3 before those ran at 4:30. So I got some waivers in last week, but IBT league was not one of them. So,
Man,
Eric, have you?
this is the joy of the guillotine league, right? Like, not to humble brag, I've been running roughshod on this league for 5 weeks, and last week it was a nail biter. Like, I was watching our friend Kyle Scott's box score more closely than I was watching mine because my team wasn't going to get there. It's just whether or not he did just enough, I guess not enough. And man, he saved us. Kyle, you are the hero that Gotham deserves.
We appreciate you, Kyle. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's redraft the first 2 rounds of fantasy football drafts back in the day.
They ain't make them like this way back in the day. Took a shot, couldn't miss way back in the day. Couldn't predict how it could all change. Don't you ever forget how far we came. How far we came. Never forget how far we came. How far we came. Remember how it was way back in the day.
We are back in the day drafting here the first 2 rounds of fantasy football leagues. And Eric, I'm sure nothing's going to change from the last time that we did a fantasy football mock draft here about 7 or 8 weeks ago.
Of course not. No. We're just going to take all of the data and information that we've gathered over the last nearly 2 months and set it aside and pretend like it is late August again.
No, of course things are going to change, guys. So let's go ahead. Let's crack this sucker open. And Tyler, you have the first pick, my guy. Let me go ahead and fire this draft up. And how we feeling here? Obviously, the consensus 101 right now, I think in most people's eyes, dealing with a little bit of an injury, but did he still make the cut for you?
You know, we did this. We picked these players a few days, like before Monday or the games on Sunday. And like, of course, you know, I'm like, oh man, I've got CMC in like every league and like we're killing. I'm like 5-0 and 6-0 after this week and killing it. And then of course the inevitable, the thing that has plagued us all season so far with our stars, not just like anybody, but like with big time stars getting hurt. CMC goes down halfway through the game. He is my 101. He is who I picked, but dadgummit, Seth, these injuries, Eric, they're killing me.
Yeah, man.
The funny thing about it is, I think it was maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we had a conversation about rest of season CMC or Justin Jefferson. And I said I would go with Justin Jefferson because I thought that he had a lower injury profile. And now we're looking at a world where Justin Jefferson is on IR. CMC is dealing with one of these kind of nagging injuries. It's been absolutely brutal out there. But, I mean, kudos to you, Tyler. We gave you the option for a mulligan after he got hurt, and you stuck to your guns. So CMC sitting there at 1. I'm going to go the wide receiver route and go with the current wide receiver number 1, man that is on pace for 17 touchdowns and 2,300 yards, Tyreek Hill.
Shout out for Tyreek Hill calling his shot this offseason. We all were like, dude, This guy's been smoking a little too much pot this offseason, head in the sky. No, he is very serious. I love those picks. I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp. And this is a guy I think I was a little bit low on coming into the season just because I didn't expect Matthew Stafford and the Rams to look this good. But they've looked damn good, boys. They've looked damn good. And Kupp is still that dude, averaging nearly 24 PPR points in his 2 games back and still maybe not 100% fully healthy. The fantasy playoffs, though, Washington, the Saints, and then the New York Giants in your fantasy championship. So give me some Cooper Kupp here, and I'll back it up with Stephon Diggs as well. This guy, it doesn't matter what the game script is for Buffalo here, boys. Diggs gets it done. 5 of 6 games above 19.9 PPR points, number 2 in receptions, number 2 in touchdowns, and number 3 in receiving yards this season. So I love everything Stephon Diggs is doing, and I think that continues to happen no matter what happens for the Bills down the stretch.
So I have an admission to make here with this pick. Right after I made this pick is when I realized that we were talking about drafting someone from week 7 and on. I thought we were talking about redrafting heading into week 1, knowing what we know now. So nonetheless, I ended up with AJ Brown. I didn't feel great about it once his light bulb went off, but then, upon further reflection, I think it's perfectly defendable, right? Like, he's sitting at wide receiver 7 right now. He's got 3 top 10 finishes on the season. He currently is number 1 in the league in air yards, while also being number 3 in the league in unrealized air yards. His red zone target rate is through the roof, right? Like, everything that you're looking for from a measurable standpoint is there. And AJ Brown is, next to Tyreek Hill, he's playing the position arguably better than anybody else in the league this year, right? So love the upside. Might have been a bit of a reach, but I'm still comfortable planting my flag with AJ Brown.
Hell yeah. We got Didi in the chat saying hello, hello, my boys. What's up, Didi? Thanks so much for joining us. And then Hooves saying draft Najee. Not today, my friend. Not today. We will not. We will not do
in
that.
1 or 2.
Tyler, we're not drafting Najee here, but you have 2 back-to-back picks here. Who goes off the board here after this top 5?
I'm going to do what everybody probably did around pick 5 or 6, if not earlier, and I'm going to go with the man, the Swifty to the max, and I'm going to take Travis Kelce right here.
Hell yeah. I know, I would say I know a lot about Travis almost all too well, if you know what I mean. So, little Swifty reference there for you. I'm still in on Travis Kelce, I think, at this price. I think some people would still maybe want him towards the end of the first round. Eric, I think that's probably where you prefer him a little bit. I know how you feel about these one-off positions.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? Like, if I had to select anyone from a one-off position in the first round, it would be Travis Kelce. But just from like an overarching standpoint, I'm not there. Taking either of the one-off positions this early. Travis Kelce is off to a fine start, and he's doing so largely playing injured, right? So
yeah.
Just imagine when he gets healthy, when this offense kind of gets clicking a little bit more.
Yes.
I mean, he still has the potential to lead this position by 50, 60, 70 points again.
I have Kelce in my home league for the first time ever, and it is so nice every week saying, okay, I'm going to get 20-ish points out of Kelce, and then my opponent has, this week it was Hunter Henry. Last week it was Luke Musgrave. So, like, I always know I'm going to have a plus in that category. Points. So it's very, very nice. Tyler, who else do you think belongs here in this middle of round 1?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. You got to take the plus, especially with tight ends. So predictable this year, but he's consistent. And so I got my running back, I got my tight end, and then starting, just first 2 games rough, and then we catch fire, and that is Jamar Chase.
Ooh, Jamar Chase. Okay. So it's so funny because we were so panicked, by Jamar Chase earlier this year. And then all of a sudden we look up and the guy's leading the NFL in receptions. It's like it never happened. He has a couple touchdowns all of a sudden. And I think I'm back in as well. I think between him and the next 2 or 3 players we talk about, it was very close for me. Eric, how do you feel on Jamar Chase? Because there's still a little bit of uneasiness for me, but I think he has to be right here.
Yeah, candidly, when I was realizing my with AJ Brown, Jamar Chase was the player that I had in mind, right? I would much rather go with him where I took Brown, and it has to do with that upside, right? Like the role that he plays in the Cincinnati offense is absolutely elite, and whether it's by injury, either to him or this year to Joe Burrow, we haven't really seen him tap into that, right? Like there's going to be a season where Joe Burrow pushes, north of 400 pass attempts, really hits that volume season. And, when that comes to pass, Jamar Chase is going to be on an entirely different level.
Yeah, after an awful start, 2 bad games.
Yeah.
He has now climbed to wide receiver 5 on the season.
It's crazy. It is crazy. So let's just recap those first 7 picks real quick. It's Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, Travis, Swifty, Kelsey, and Jamar Chase. And we're going to take a quick pause there. I want to bring something up in the chat here. Looks like Dee she was having some health scares, and it looks like she is clear of breast cancer. So she is celebrating right now, and so happy to be here at the IBT family. I just want to say, man, this makes my night. Thank you so much for sharing this with us, Dee, and being here while you are celebrating. Like, listen, fantasy football is fun. What we're talking about is fun, but like, this is awesome, and this is such great news. So I'm so happy to share it here with you. And don't ever feel like, whatever you guys are dealing with in life, feel free to drop it in the chat. Like, we're always here to talk about it, and hopefully be a little bit of a ray of sunshine in your guys' life. So Eric, I'm pumped up to hear this from our friend Dee. She's been a great supporter of us.
Yeah, and I had no idea. So shout out to you for working your way through this. I'm sure you have your own support system in your real life, not in your YouTube life. But yeah, like Seth said, right? Like we consider everyone here part of the IBT family. So
yes, we do.
Super pumped that you got some good news. Glad to know that that weight is off your shoulder, and now we're here celebrating. What better way to celebrate than redrafting the first 2 rounds?
Hell yeah. We appreciate you, Dee. Cheers, and thanks so much for being part of our community here. That's what it's all about, man. I love hearing what's going on and all the big victories and the small victories in the IBT family members' lives. Let's focus back in on the draft here. Eric, it is back to you now. A lot of wide receivers in these first 7 picks.
Yeah, there has been. And as I'm one to do, that prompted me to look elsewhere over to the running back position. And like Tyler mentioned, we started this draft before games had started or certainly finished. I was hoping that my decision would be reinforced by a big performance on Sunday night. It wasn't exactly. My choice here was Austin Eckler. Look, he's ramping his way back up from injury because we are playing from week 7 and on. I expect to have him for the full complement of games. And despite only playing 2 games this year, he's already got 11 red zone touches, right? Like, his ability to get into the box is where his value comes from. And in limited opportunity, at least limited time on the field, he's still a focal point of this red zone offense, right? So better days are ahead. The touchdowns are coming. I still think Austin Eckler is an elite option at the running back position.
I'm so glad you said the touchdowns are coming. I was so excited. I drafted Eckler in so many leagues, and I had him, and he's playing, and they kept getting in the red zone. I was like, yes, give it to Austin Eckler. Let's go. Touchdown. I just need 7 points, and I got my win wrapped up. And, man, he just didn't get it. So the opportunities were there, like you said, and I don't think every defense is going to be like that defense. But dadgummit, that's what I get for, like, depending first game back, depending on him. But, killer pick through the rest of the season.
Yeah, Austin Eckler, man. Like, I hope you just held on because the good times are coming, Tyler. They are coming, our friends. Number 9 here. I'm going to go with a guy who was drafted right around in this range initially. And you might be a little disappointed if you drafted him. It's Bijan Robinson, the rookie running back for the Atlanta Falcons. And this one's close, but Bijan's been consistent so far. You've seen that consistency. Has never had a game in single-digit PPR points. That's pretty good for a rookie. And number 2 in running backs as far as receptions. And I think eventually, whether Arthur Smith wants to or not, if he wants to win this division, he has to take the reins off of Bijan Robinson. There's not going to be 15 fucking carries for Tyler Algier every single week. It's going to be kept in check with Algier. He's going to have to use Robinson more than he is now. I like the upside moving forward in the rest of the season. And then number 10 here, Amon-Ra St. Brown for me. Guy has been absolutely electric when he's been on the field this season, averaging 20 points per game. And the playoff schedule for him, Chicago, Denver, Minnesota, and Dallas. And I think what it comes down to ASRB for me, Eric, is I want players attached to good offenses. The Lions are one of the best offenses, and newsflash, 5-1, one of the best teams in the NFL.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is as steady as it gets, right? Like everything that you're looking for in an anchor wide receiver, Amon-Ra's getting for you. He was very much so the player that I was hoping would fall to me. He didn't. And so partially out of spite to you and your love for the frisky Jets, going with Breece Hall next, right? Like this is a guy that is absolutely coming on. He's completely white hot over these last 2 weeks. He's someone that we've been pounding the table here at IBT Media to go out and buy low while you still can. 23 and 28 point fantasy performances over his last 2 weeks. And more specifically, Dalvin Cook is gone. Like you look at his rush attempt share week over week, falls from 48 to 36 to 38 to 33, 22, 21, 16, right? Like he's the experiment with Dalvin Cook has, that chapter is closed. It is absolutely Breece Hall time. And he's clearly dynamic enough to do plenty if he, even in kind of a below average, to put it lightly, offense, clearly athletic enough to do a lot with that heavy workload.
I felt euphoric on Sunday when not only had he had a big game the week before, but he had a great game against a really good Philadelphia defense and scored. Yes, they let him score, but the touchdown, I needed it in a couple leagues to get me over the hump and get me the win. And I felt like almost like Simba was coming home in The Lion King. Like I was so fucking jacked up. Breece, I love you, baby. Thank you for everything. And hashtag Frisky Jets, stay frisky here, Tyler. They take down the Eagles. What your game. Thoughts on the Frisky Jets and your 2 picks as well?
Yeah, Breece has just looked as advertised. I mean, he goes in and then he pops out on the other side like Frank Gore used to, Frank Gore would just go into a pile and then all of a sudden he just pops out still running. Yeah. You're like, I don't know what just happened. Somehow he found the tunnel. Breece is doing that stuff. And then once he hits that straightaway, he is gone. It's exciting because I feel like almost confidently you can go in and think Breece is going to get a 20-plus yard run every game. And so that's, I mean, both of those, you both snipe me. Like, I know we can't portray this because this is but both of these picks, I'm sitting here going like, please fall, please fall. But, since they didn't, I'm going to go ahead and I typically like to go running back heavy in my drafts. And I take the number 3 running back in fantasy football with only 1 week out of significant double digits, like below 20. I think he had one that was 15, but I'm going to take Travis Etienne.
Hell yeah. And man, it's been great to see the evolution for Travis Etienne. And people don't realize it, but this guy, hopefully, I don't want to jinx it because this guy's a stud.
Don't do it.
But he is on pace right now for almost as many total touches as Josh Jacobs had total last year, leading the league. So this guy's the opportunity is there. He is a bullet. I love seeing him play, and he's meant a lot to this Jacksonville offense, which is going to be great once again. So I'm with you there on Travis Etienne. Who do you have here 13th overall for us, Tyler?
13th overall. So this is an absolutely gotta risk it for the biscuit.
This is a big risky pick.
It's a risk it but one thing we've seen is this year there's been so many surprises in the later rounds. So I feel like I can find somebody. I mean, if it wasn't for penalties, Josh Palmer has another 60 yards and a touchdown in the Chargers game. So I think I can find somebody till he gets back. But in the second round, I can't pass on Justin Jefferson.
Man, it's so tough because the Vikings, if they're formidable, he can come back and it's like it never happened and the good times keep rolling, Eric. But this is really like how ballsy, how daring, how bold do you feel here? Tyler throwing his nutsack on the table with this pick.
Man, and that table's flipping over, right? This is the move, right? Like you're absolutely look. We're talking about 3 people alternating picks, right? So none of us are actually building a team, but you're talking about someone that's swinging for the fences. This is the pick that you have to make to do it. I think it's kind of weird, just like the the widely accepted speculation that if the Vikings are out of it, that Justin Jefferson might not actually suit back up. Like, generally speaking, these guys understand that they have a relatively short window of time to make the most amount of money. And if they're healthy, they're going to be out there playing, right? Like, there's obviously exceptions to that rule, but for me, I think we're looking at a 4-week, now 3-week window where you gotta kind of wade your way along, and then after you do that, like, you've got the number 1 overall pick from ADP this year on your roster to just go out there and kill it over the stretch run.
Gotta risk it for the biscuit. DD saying love it in the chat. Eric, who are you taking here? But before I get 2 sweet picks in the second round.
Yeah, so actually similar logic here to the Travis Etienne pick, which was one that I was hoping to make had he made his way back around to me. I got to go with Kenneth Walker here. Like, like Travis Etienne, a guy where there was some concern about a rookie coming in and eating into his workload, and anything but has happened, right? Like, Walker sitting as running back 10 right now on the season. He's got 11 receptions for 100 receiving yards, right? Like, that was supposed to be Zach Charbonnet's work, by hook or by crook. It hasn't been his work. Very much so. Kenneth Walker has his backfield by the short and curlies. And when he's getting this workload, like, he is an elite option, right? So I probably am being a bit more aggressive than I should be here, but it's hard to find this type of opportunity for a running back in today's league.
It was one of my biggest misses this offseason. I didn't have any Kenneth Walker, and I have Charbonnet by the boatload, and I don't know what to do with him in half the leagues because he is a great handcuff, maybe one of the best out there, but his standalone value is just not what we thought it was going to be this season. So I like the Kenneth Walker pick. I'm going to go with a guy that, Eric, I'm so thankful you joined the podcast here 3 or 4 months ago because you turned me on to Keenan Allen before the season started. I wanted nothing to do with a guy who he's 31 years old. We often think like, I don't want a 31-year-old receiver on my team, but Keenan freaking Allen is a stud and wide receiver 2 in points per game, had 20 fucking targets in a game. Like, who thought that could happen with this guy? Eric, I think you summed it up greatly before the season started. They were going to use him in this CeeDee Lamb-like role in this Kellen Moore offense. Inside, outside, off the field. Like, this guy's just everywhere. I love Keenan Allen, and man, what a value he was in a lot of drafts, my friend.
Man, it warms my heart to see him all the way up here where he should have been drafted over the course of the offseason, right? Like, with the OC change, like, this is an entirely different offense, right? So while you've got the volume that we've come to know from Keenan Allen, the frequency at which they're pushing the ball down the field, the pace at which they're playing, these are things that have moved up and moved in the right direction considerably. So 6-week sample, I'll save my victory lap for now, but very happy with how it started out for Keenan Allen so far.
Yes, yeah. There was a team that I play in a league with, and they started out Justin Jefferson, first pick overall, came back on 24, and they went Cooper Kupp and Keenan Allen. Could you imagine if he had all 3 of those healthy? That would be scary.
Squad.
I will go at pick 16. I'll go Jonathan Taylor, and this is a bet on a scheme that has made Zach Moss, yes, Zach Moss, the running back 4 on a points per game basis, averaging 20.5 PPR points this season. Vibes are high right now for JT and the Colts, and they need him. No Anthony Richardson moving forward. We don't know if it's a season ender yet. It's looking that way that he might get some surgery. Rest in peace, my friend. And I got to tell you guys, I got to stop buying jerseys of people. I didn't buy this jersey, but I was so close. I had it in the cart. I was ready to go. Last year, you guys know I ordered a Breece Hall jersey. It showed up the day after he tore his ACL. So I got to stop thinking that I want jerseys. I got to stop. I was going to get the Plexico Burress jersey as a kid the night he shot himself in the foot.
No.
Like, oh, yeah. No, this is – I have the worst.
It's like a curse.
I got Antonio Brown. I got Mike Wallace. Like name a player who either did something stupid or is no longer with that team as soon as I bought it. Yeah. So got to stop buying jerseys. But meanwhile, JT to the fucking moon. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Eric, your thoughts on JT? Do you have bad jersey luck as well? And your pick?
I have no bad jersey luck, at least as far as I understand. Although the vast majority of my jerseys come from my fandom, which is for the lowly Houston Texans. So maybe all of my jersey luck is bad luck as well, given our fortunes up until this year. Yeah, look, Jonathan Taylor, like this is what they told us they were going to do, right? Like he had exactly 10 touches in the first week. Week 2, which was last week, almost touch for touch 50-50 split with Zach Moss. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see him push for 65, maybe 70% of the work in this week. And at that point, you're off to the races. And as much as it hurts me as a fantasy manager of his, no Anthony Richardson hanging around to vulture those touchdowns. So wheels up for Jonathan Taylor. Definitely someone that I was going to consider with my next pick if he was on the board. He was not. So I went with the volume king, Mr. Tony Pollard. Hasn't been great from an efficiency standpoint, but he is absolutely getting all of the work, right? He's number 4 in weighted opportunities. He's number 3 in targets. He's number 7 in carries. And despite only having 2 touchdowns on the season, he's number 2 in red zone touches, 35 red zone touches this year, right? So the volume gives you a super solid floor. And if he's going to be this involved in the red zone, the touchdowns are coming. So probably a bit of a stick your neck out moment, but I think that we're going to have a good stretch run for Tony Pollard here.
All right. Tyler, how do you feel about Tony Pollard? It has been a little disappointing at times. I think the entire Cowboys offense this year has, but the volume's been there, like Eric said, and maybe things are starting to turn around for the Cowboys as we saw on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I think part of it is an issue in scheme. You know, Tony Pollard thrived in that Kellen Moore, dump off, like let me create these creative runs out on the edge, and like he thrived in that. Now you have this thing where they're like, their interior offensive line has not been impressive. Tyler Smith has been, he's okay, but he's not been what we really hoped for. And so they're running Pollard right up the pipe a lot. And it's just, I watched it like last night. I was just dying because I've got Pollard in that same league I needed Eckler to do good in. And it's just like 2 yards, 1 yard. And I'm just like, gosh, and then when they give him a little bit of room in the passing game, he breaks off his largest, catch/run of the game. So, it's a little bit of a scheme thing for me. I think the talent is there. Obviously, I got to push for my Memphis guy.
Yes, sir.
But he wasn't there for me to pick in this next pick. I am a Pollard fan, but I'm still going to go with the boys. And I'm going to take their other elite weapon, and it's not Dak Prescott. It is CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, thank God. I maybe that little recency bias from that rushing touchdown got you with Dak.
Hey, I got dogged in the show the past week because everybody was like, I'm so done with Dak. Like I was in a show with 2 Cowboy fans and they're like, Dak's garbage. He needs to go. And I'm like, hey guys, sneaky play. I'm going to live on my island over here and you should start Dak this week. And they're like, you're an idiot. But surprisingly, that little rushing touchdown got him. And depending on your scoring format, he either finished QB1 on the week or QB3, which is not saying much because it was like mid-20s on the points.
Yeah, it was an awful day of honestly scores all around the league. So many unders hit. Like you were just so well off taking a lot of unders last week, and the quarterback play was atrocious across the league as well. Eric, Tyler, we stay with you here for another pick. Number 19 overall. Who would be going rest of the season for you?
So this is my put ahead on the chopping block. I may be out of my mind, but I'm going to take the wide receiver 2 that the Rams have dreamt of and take Puka right here.
Wow. It is insane what Puka Nacua has been doing this season, Eric. Just from an efficiency standpoint, but also from a volume standpoint. And yes, he had his first down game with Cooper Kupp back, but he did drop a surefire touchdown earlier in the week
There you
that
go.
I think people would have been feeling differently about. I know it sounds crazy to have a guy that people weren't even drafting here in the second round, and maybe it's a little too rich for my blood, but I still think Puka would at least be probably a top 30 player for me in my own personal rest of season ranks. Your thoughts here on the kid out of BYU who's just slinging it?
Yeah, I've got a similar take that you do on a variety of accords. I've had people ask me if Puka Nacua is droppable now, and it's like if he held on to that football in the end zone last week, not one person is thinking this, right? If he held on to that football in the end zone last week, he has another double-digit game, even though Cooper Kupp has returned, right? So like clearly, like we've been saying all along, Nakua's upside is considerably limited now that Cooper Kupp has returned, but he's still a steady kind of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 flex guy, right? So, locking in that kind of volume, there's always going to be a place for it. Kind of like you said, I think if we were playing this all the way out, might have been able to wait, 10, 12 picks or so to get him, but he's still a super solid rest of season asset.
All right. And who do you have here? We are up to pick number 20 overall.
Yeah, so I went the exact opposite of Puka Nacua. I went with someone who has been pretty hit or miss so far this year, but his offensive skill set, his upside is unreal. You really have to weather through these down weeks. And that's Chris Olave. He's currently wide receiver 21 on the season. A lot of that is because he's had some down performances. He had a 1-point outing against Tampa Bay. He had a 9-point outing against New England. That's really dragging down his average. But apart from that, basically at 15 points or more in every single game when you normalize for those two outliers. And as he is one to do, number 2 in the league in air yards, 762 air yards already. He's number 1 in the league in unrealized air yards, right? So like they're just pushing him the ball down the field. So when you look at his 53 targets, which is number 11 in the league, it's not 4 yards from the line of scrimmage. Hopefully you can do a little bit of run after the catch. These are game-breaking targets that this guy is getting. And in all of this, 1 receiving touchdown on the year, but he is sitting there with 6 end zone targets on the year, right? So these end zone targets are like gold when you talk about receiving weapons. The fact that he is currently number 5 at the wide receiver position in terms of end zone targets and has only converted 1 of those into a score, there's some regression coming, right? This is a buy low candidate.
Okay, Chris Olave off the board there for Eric. And I'll give you props, man. We haven't seen it from Chris Olave this season. I'm a little bit worried that those unrealized air yards stay unrealized just because of Derek Carr and just the total garbage that Pete Carmichael draws up as an offensive coordinator. That was honestly my worry. Like I didn't have him on my bust list because I didn't want to be that contrarian of a guy who gets clowned. But I didn't like Chris Olave at ADP this season. I'm worried. I would take Puka. I think I would take all the rest of these guys we have on our list here tonight than Chris Olave, but I respect the call nonetheless. Let's go ahead with my next pick, number 21 overall. Give me some freaking Raheem Mostert. And I can't believe I'm here, but I really think this is where we have to be because not only is this guy the RB2 on the season and one of the best offenses in the league, but it is one of the most historic offenses we've ever seen in the NFL. He's catching passes, he's getting high-value touches, and it feels legit now. After that 40-point game, you said, there's some holes in this. But right now, number 2 in fantasy points per opportunity, so he's being efficient. He has a great scheme called it by Mike McDaniel, a great offensive line. And the way defenses are playing the Dolphins right now, they are daring them use Raheem Mostert, run it against us, throw some checkdowns. And you know what Tua saying? He said, all right, I'm going to do it. And it's led to some good fantasy points for Mr. Raheem Mostert. So give me some Raheem Mostert at 21. And number 22 is Josh Jacobs, my last pick in this draft. And this is just a trust the volume thing, averaging 27.5 touches per game over last month. That's like what we used to get from Derrick Henry back in his heyday. So it's not necessarily super sexy, but we have to trust Josh Jacobs. Also leading the league among running backs in targets as well. So the guy's getting a ton of opportunity through the air. They got to rely on him now. It's Jimmy Garoppolo who might be a little banged up. Devontae Adams a little banged up. So Josh Jacobs to me is a workhorse rest of the season.
Yeah, he absolutely is, right? I mean, you talked about him in context of Travis Etienne earlier, but look, the volume was insane last year. Looks like it's going to be equally as insane this year. And he has been getting more and more effective as we've gotten deeper into the season, right? He had that long layoff while he held out. So definitely don't mind the Josh Jacobs call there. For my last pick of this redraft, I kind of wanted to plant my flag and really just show some respect to my guy Jalen Waddle. Look, this is an uber talented wide receiver.
Ooh.
Obviously, you want to do anything that you can to get into and get a piece of this Dolphins offense. And look, the explosion games haven't been here yet, but he is coming on of late, right? Back-to-back games. He's seen his targets walk up back-to-back games. He's found his way into the end zone. I think this is a sign of things to come. So we'll set that slow start aside as the benefit of starting here heading into week 7. And I think Waddle has a good chance of finishing right around wide receiver 12 or 15 when it's all said and done.
All right. Tyler, round us out. Pick number 24. Final one in this draft. Your 24th player rest of season for yourself.
So part of this is I struggled as I was drafting this team. I was like, man, it'd be really cool if this was my actual team. And I'm like thinking about filling all my positions up. Like I got 2 killer running backs. I got some killer wide receivers and a flex play, and then what do I need? And they haven't been taken yet. And historically, I never, ever draft a quarterback early in my drafts. I always go skill positions. But as QB number 1 on the season and significantly higher, and I mean that's including week 1 where he got like maybe 9 points, but since then has been averaging probably close to 30. I took just to throw a wrench in the game, Josh Allen.
I don't think it's a bad pick, and I don't think it's a reach in my opinion. This is right where quarterbacks were kind of going for the first place when we started this whole thing back in August. And I think like Josh Allen has proved here, at least to me, that it's him and Hurts, and I think everyone else behind them. I think you could have, maybe debated who is the quarterback 1. But I think with his rushing upside, seeing a little bit less of it, but still just the touchdown equity on a great team, I'm all right with this pick. I'm comfortable with it. Eric, your thoughts on Josh Allen here at pick number 24?
Yeah, I mean this is right about where he ought to go if you are one to roster Josh Allen, right? So, despite it being kind of a hot and cold season for him overall, he's still putting up considerable points, right? So the argument that we were making for why you can justify taking him where he was being drafted 6 weeks ago still remains true, and arguably we've already seen more of his downside, right? So with that kind of already in the can, as he normalizes, as he regresses back to his mean, there should be some pretty good weeks ahead of him.
Some notable names not drafted in this: Devontae Adams, Derrick Henry, Devonta Smith.
No.
Yes. And I will say, if David Montgomery
sound like round 3s to me.
if David Montgomery didn't get hurt, I think I might have taken him over Josh Jacobs. I will say that as well. David Montgomery, maybe even higher. I was getting really high on David.
I would have took him instead of Puka.
Okay, so keep that in mind. Montgomery could still be a top 25 asset when he gets back from injury. So I love looking at this holistically with you guys because it just gets us out of that mindset. Oh, I paid a second round or a first round pick for Derrick Henry. I have to get that value back. Guys, values are changing, and this was a great exercise to look at. So thank you guys for your analysis there. Let's go ahead and let's dig through what remains of the Week 7 waiver wire here with our next segment in the scope.
I have the stars in my sights.
Requesting permission to engage.
In the scope.
All right, in the scope, we're going to look at some waiver wires. We're going to start with our mainstream targets and then get into some plays that you can get after waivers run here. So we'll just run through the mainstream really quickly. I think if you need a quarterback, it's Sam Howell here, Eric. I'm interested in him, 19.1% rostered. He's the guy we talked about on and off this season, and it seems like it's been more good than bad, at least for fantasy points.
Yeah, it has. Really the thing for me, like if you're heading into week 7 and you're looking for a quarterback, like the thing I always do when I'm streaming is looking for guys that have the volume. And Josh and Sam Howell is very much so checking that box, right? So Howell, by hook or by crook, whether it's because they're trailing, whether it's because of what Bieniemy's trying to do, Sam Howell's 5th in the league in pass attempts this year, right? So getting that volume, he's obviously got solid to plus weapons around him. Like he's exactly what you're looking for in a QB streamer in my mind.
Okay. Really cool. Soft. This guy enjoy.
It's a nice steal.
I think Seth might be running into some audio issues here.
Yeah,
Seth, I don't know if you're back, but we lost your follow up on Sam Howell.
I will let you take it. Go through the running backs. I'm going to reconnect here, Eric.
All right. So the remainder of our mainstream running back targets, pretty solid list, right? No one that I think you should go out and absolutely break the bank for. Player of note, player that got his opportunity and played well with it. Chuba Hubbard, he's currently sitting at 46%. Obviously, we'll have to keep an eye on Miles Sanders' availability, but even when Sanders returns, I think we're looking at a guy that has earned himself, somewhat of an expanded role, especially in the passing game for these Panthers. And then Tyler, I wanted to get your thought here on the next two running backs. Obviously, we talked about your first overall pick in the Week 7 redraft, Christian McCaffrey, now dealing with an oblique injury. So Jordan Mason, Eli Mitchell sitting there at 1.4% and 26.4% rostered respectively. If they're both on your wire, which direction do you think you're heading?
I'm going to go Elijah Mitchell. I think Elijah Mitchell is the better talent out of them. Fortunately, I think either one will be successful in a Kyle Shanahan offense. You pretty much he can put whoever he needs to in there and they're going to be okay. Obviously, CMC is a whole nother level, but we've seen all the beginning of the season working alongside CMC is Elijah Mitchell. And I think last week they still wanted to give him one more week to kind of get healthy before they really started throwing him in. And then when the CMC injury happened, they were forced to give him a couple touches there. But I think that he's definitely going to be the one that they highlight out of those two. So I would put my money on Elijah Mitchell.
All right. I love that. You guys got me full loud and clear here?
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Awesome. Roschon Johnson, we've been talking about him all season. I don't think we have to talk too much more about him, but if he's back and healthy with the Bears, it could be a good opportunity, especially with Justin Fields down. And I'll just say, man, look out for Tyson Bagent. This guy out of Shepherd. I know nobody wants to see Justin Fields go down, especially after he was just getting hot, but this is a Division II quarterback. My alma mater, IUP, would get to the semifinals or the championship game of Division II most every single year. And this guy in Shepherd would just come and fucking crush us. So I like maybe a little love for Bagent here. Maybe. Tyjae Spears, Craig Reynolds, Zach Evans. Any love for any of those players, Tyler? Tyjae Spears, you're rostering through the bye. If so, Craig Reynolds, it's a 1 or 2 week thing, maybe with David Montgomery out. And then Zach Evans, he's the last man standing in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I'm not on the Zach Evans train. I have never been on the Zach Evans train. I just don't see it. How many stars you were as a recruit does not translate to what you produce on an NFL roster or even really in college.
Yeah.
I saw you tweeted about it today and I was like, my dude Seth just nailed it. Just threw him out there. And then Craig Reynolds, like you said, he's a 1 or 2 week plug. Obviously, if they have Gibbs or Monty back, that's going to be that. And then I believe Tyjae Spears actually has value as an elite level handcuff. Like if for some reason Derrick Henry misses time, like, oh my goodness, what Tyjae Spears will be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But even alongside Derrick Henry, we're still seeing a good amount of usage. We're still seeing a really good change of pace. And it gets me excited. Like I don't, if I have him on my roster and I need to like pick up somebody for a bye week, like I'm having a lot of trouble letting him go. You know what I mean?
Yep. I think he should be rostered as well. The rest of the running back targets this week: Jaleel McLaughlin, Justice Hill, Keontae Ingram, a little fool's gold there last week with Amari DiMercado, and Latavius Murray, 6.6% rostered. Shout out Rachel. Rachel featured him in a blog for IBT a couple weeks ago. She loves Latavius Murray, slow and steady, and he got the start here for Buffalo. Unfortunate situation for Damian Harris, who went out in a stretcher in an ambulance, but it looks like he's going to be okay. It has all function of his body, so that's good. Wide receivers here, Eric. Josh Palmer, Josh Downs, Josh Reynolds. That we're still getting Josh here regularly. Rashee Rice, Jameson Williams, Wan'Dale Robinson. If there's one guy you had to pick up this week and fire him out there from these guys under 50% rostered on ESPN right now, who is it?
Yeah, we talked a bit about him on the Friday show. It's Rashee Rice for me, right? Like we've speculated as to which wide receiver is going to emerge in this Kansas City offense.
Yeah,
Rashee Rice in limited work has looked like the most dynamic of the lot, and last week was a tipping point. He is actually tied for second among the wide receivers, specifically in terms of routes run. Right, he kind of broke through that like 8 to 12 range that he'd been hanging around, ran 22 routes last week. So, not only is he getting more time on the field, he's continuing to see his productivity ramp up with that additional time. So it's Rice out of this lot.
Yeah, if they want to make another Super Bowl run, man, they have to get him more involved because he looks like the one game changer in that wide receiver room. Mm-hmm. At the tight end position, it's our old friend Jonnu Smith still back out there, 14.8% rostered for him. Luke Musgrave, 17.4% rostered, and Michael Mayer, 1.4% rostered. And shout out Scott Reinier, our other co-host on the podcast. He shouted out Mayer in a tweet last week saying, hey, let's not get too excited, but we did see some career highs for Mayer in week 5. Well, those translated to double-digit PPR points for Mayer here in week number 6. He's going to be leaned upon as well, looks like, if Brian Hoyer's under center. So those are the mainstream candidates here. And then I want to bounce down to our in the scope candidates. These are players you can get after the waiver wire runs. And Tyler, before this was kind of a junk week. So these are players that if you're not picking them up, you got to throw the flag on them. You got to watch them and see what happens here with them. But before we get to that, I know you had some thoughts on what was kind of a weird day for the NFL. It's like all these veterans were finally getting a little bit of love out there.
Yeah, no. For my in the scope, I was like, I was thinking of trying to find a player that I think, and I don't know. Like, I don't know because I don't really love. I look at my rosters and who's rostered under 10%. I'm like, I don't know that there's anybody, especially in my redraft leagues that are thin, that I'm trying to go get. But then, like, my notifications start lighting up all day, and I'm seeing like Lenny's working out with the Bills this past weekend. James Robinson signed by the Packers. Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman signed by the Rams. Anthony Miller and 3 other wide receivers signed by the Colts. Kenyon Drake picked up by Baltimore. Tracy McSorley picked up by the Bears to give your guy Tyson Badgett a little bit of competition there.
I love me some Trace McSorley too.
And then probably the biggest signing, and who I would put as like you got to watch out for what could happen, is Julio was signed not to the practice squad, but to the active roster with the Eagles. And that, to me, was out of nowhere.
Yeah. I love that this was kind of what you wanted to highlight here and in the scope is these players that we might not see much from them. We haven't seen a lot from Julio in a couple of years, but I was literally just telling my girlfriend the other day, how is Lenny not signed to a team yet? He needs to be owned.
Dude, poor Lenny.
Yeah.
All these like scrap heap guys are getting jobs, and Lenny's just out there like, what about me?
Yeah, and he's back. We don't know if he's back, but he's at least working out for the Bills, which I think would be a nice fit there. Eric, I know you have to run some other things, but real quick, give us your in the scope candidate this week and your thoughts on someone who we can grab after the waiver wires run.
This one hurts my heart because I was out here banging the drum for Dameon Pierce over the entire offseason. And last week we finally saw Devin Singletary overtake Dameon Pierce in terms of his snap share. They were neck and neck in opportunity share. And look, like maybe this is just kind of, a learning curve for Dameon Pierce as he gets acclimated to this Bobby Slowick kind of zone running scheme. The way that he profiles is probably a bit stronger in more of a power run scheme, whereas Devin Singletary is a real patient runner. He's a bit more fluid. If nothing else, he's going to have a role to play. He's worth the stash. And because the Texans are on bye, you can get him for absolutely nothing. No one's going to go out and pick him up this week.
I can't help but laugh because as you deliver this information here, it just like you can see the sadness on your face. Like I'm so upset to actually be saying this.
Well, Eric, we appreciate your analysis, my friend. We will catch you here on Friday. You'll be back with us. In the meantime, keep it in between, brother. Thank you. Tyler, let's round out here within the scope, and then we'll get some questions from the forum. Trey McBride is my in the scope candidate. And last week I wanted to talk about Michael Mayer, and it was a similar situation where we were seeing career high, season highs for Mayer. And I didn't know if I could fully believe it into rostering him. I think I kind of believe Trey McBride a little bit. Season high snaps for the Arizona Cardinals tight end, 58% in week 6. That's 9 more than the veteran Zach Ertz, who's been pretty solid this season. Tyler, 5 targets for four receptions and 62 yards for Trey McBride here in week number 6. And is this the Cardinals saying, hey, we know we're not going to win this year? Is this where we pivot away from that? These veteran players and see what we have in these young guys? I'm not 100% sure if that's the case, but this is a player who had a 99 percentile dominator rating at Colorado State. He was a stud for the Rams, 2nd-round pick. He has the draft capital. Any interest in Trey McBride in deeper leagues where you need a tight end? They play the Seahawks this week, which don't have the best pass defense, and he's available in, 99.6% of leagues, my friend.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like Trey McBride. I like Trey McBride, especially in dynasty formats. We typically see tight ends take a little bit longer to develop. There are some of the outliers like Laporta this year, but typically we see a few years pass and then we start to really see that happen. And I felt like that would be Trey McBride. I felt like Trey McBride needed to develop as a blocker when he came into the league. And I think it's more of that, and he's starting to be more effective. So, I don't think that they keep Ertz. Obviously, he is on his way out, and I like McBride in Dynasty. I think that we could be looking, a 2 years down the road, and like being really, really glad that we've rostered him.
Yeah, I honestly think too. Like if I'm in a situation in redraft right now and I don't have anybody, I don't know if I want to fire him up quite this week yet, but like I'm willing to put him on the bench and see what I can get from him. Like pretty much everyone outside of the top 6 or 7 tight ends, in my opinion, aren't rosterable. Like we've been hyping up Jake Ferguson for months, and Jake Ferguson has had 2 like unusable games. He's hurt your fantasy team. Like, I think there's a chance that maybe the changing the tides with the Arizona Cardinals, and we maybe see some Trey McBride. But again, I don't want to hype him up too much. But yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna add. So, for example, right there with you, and you're saying like people say, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Cole Kmet, right? Currently tight end number 5 on the year. Year 1, finished tight end 43. Year 2, tight end 21. Year 3, 7, and then this year he's currently 5. McBride is almost the exact same. Year 1, 41, so 2 places better. Year 2, currently tight end 34, but we're just now starting to see him really get usage. So it's that similar progression to that kind of tight end that Cole Kmet's showing that he is, and I think Trey McBride will be.
Okay, I love it, man. Let's go ahead and round out the show tonight with From the Forum.
If you're up, stuck, thinking about what to do, here in between, we got advice for you. Back and forth all day, trying to pick the play. Let's hear what them boys here had to say.
Presented by the Fantasy Football Advice Network.
All right, the Fantasy Football Advice Network. Tyler, this is your baby, and this is a platform that I found out about over the summer, and I've been jazzed to work with it and engage with the community over there because it's been so cool to have a platform where players and creators support each other. And I'll be honest, man, like I'm a busy person. I don't have time to use these other apps like Discord and Patreon and Facebook and Instagram. Like I just don't have the time, but your platform brings it all together where it's not everything else. It's just fantasy football. I can get my answers quickly. I can give advice quickly. I can share content quickly. It's all super efficient and under one roof. Is there any more that you can add to what you have going on over there?
Yeah, fantasyfootballadvice.com, and it is a fantasy football community. Just like you said, I mean, that is the nuts and bolts is like, hey, it's everybody hanging out, everybody asking their questions, everybody throwing their stuff or giving advice, a place where content creators can create and they can monetize and they can, provide stuff for the fantasy football community all in one space without having to go check this app and that app and this app and that app, and Seth, a huge update coming is that with pretty soon you will actually be able to stream your show directly into our platform and on the mobile app, baby. It is, man, I have to say it is killer. It's awesome. The amount of people that are jumping in, the amount of it's really humbling for me to be a part of, but glad to see it's becoming something so awesome for the fantasy football community.
And it's been really cool to meet some new faces over there as well that I had never met before. Because Twitter's hard to navigate, man. Like I love Twitter, but it is hard to navigate. And I will say, I have a phone storage issue where I cannot download very many apps just because I have so much music and music and podcasts on my phone. So this was allowed me to delete like 5 other apps and just have one app. So I really appreciate the Fantasy Football Advice Network for that. If you guys want to try it out, please go over there to fantasyfootballadvice.com, one of the slickest URLs in the game, and use our promo code IBT. You're going to get yourself 25% off of your first month or year subscription over there.
And it is, Seth, it is free to join. If you want to interact and ask questions, you can sign up and create an account for free. And then, of course, use IBT's code, and you can get that will give you your pro membership at a discount. But you can get on and ask questions just like you do in the chat right on the site. And people like me, people like Seth, and tons of other users are there to help.
It is the easiest way we can, like, if you want to ask questions on this show weekly, which I see we want to have one from GB here in the chat, the easiest way to get them answered is getting over there on the Advice Network. Like, I'm going there Monday and Tuesday. I'm looking for questions to answer. And it not only is it going to be featured in this segment, but we also have a follow-up article that comes out with even more in-depth analysis, personalized advice for you guys. So make sure you're checking it out over there at fantasyfootballadvice.com. And first question of the night here, Tyler, we got one from GB7892. PPR single flex league. He is 4-2. Should he be trading Amon-Ra for Derrick Henry and Pittman? His RBs are Gibbs, Najee Harris, Sanders. Wide receivers are Kupp, Amon, Puka, and Judy. So, GB, we just did a redraft of the first 2 rounds in this episode. And I think we had Amon-Ra maybe like 14th or 15th, Tyler. So we still maybe even before that. He might have been.
Yeah, he was the first round, I think.
Yeah, I think it was maybe 10 or 11. So I struggle to give up a player of that value when Derrick Henry has slid in my eyes. It's still been good, but he's going to face even more stacked boxes now if Tannehill's out. And Pittman's been awesome. I mean, double-digit targets last week with Minshew. It was great, but I don't know. This just feels a little needy to me.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the stash. he threw for. I mean, it was a little bit not accurate. I mean, like you didn't get the full picture because he had some picks that were just really what it felt like receivers not making an effort to make a play on the ball, like slight overthrows. But I definitely like Pittman with Minshew at quarterback. But I'm not trading Amon-Ra for Derrick Henry and Pittman. I'm keeping Amon-Ra, and you've got Kupp. I mean, you've got a killer set there. If anything, what I'm probably doing is I'm taking like Puka, right? Because I don't want to be starting Kupp and Puka every week.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Puka coming off a high. I may make one more game because I think he has a good game this coming week. But I would trade Puka and try to get your running back there. I think people would probably trade Derrick Henry for Puka.
We're getting close.
Does that sound outlandish?
No, I mean, we just had Puka ranked in our top 24 picks, and we didn't have Derrick Henry. So I don't think it's a outlandish thing to say at all at this point. So, yeah, and I think even if you packaged Puka maybe with a Najee or a Sanders, you could maybe get yourself maybe not a surefire, top 5, 6 RB, but probably a low-end RB1. You might be able to get yourself a Tony Pollard, a Josh Jacobs, someone kind of in that range. So I wouldn't do this trade, GB, but I think you're in the right mindset. But I'd really be trying to hang on to Kupp and Amon-Ra, man. Those are your 2 best players on this team, and it feels like you're just selling yourself a little short here is all. So let's get to a question over on the forum, Tyler. And this one is from Bradley Twin 01. He says, all right, so we are on to week 7. Who are we calling for Super Bowl appearances this year? He says, I'd love to see Dolphins versus Lions. Also, I have Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt on my bench. Who do I start this week? So let's start with the Super Bowl picks here. Tyler, your thoughts?
Oh, God, I don't even want to get into it. It's so crazy. There's no undefeated teams, and we just finished week 6. We don't know. I don't think that you can really look at it and say, I mean, I think San Francisco is a favorite. Obviously, I think the Chiefs are a favorite. I think the Dolphins look really good. And, I wonder if they're not, if they're not there, it just, I don't know. It's anybody's ball game right now. It feels like, especially with like the injuries and stuff that are hidden and like complete team changes that are being made. I just can't make a call.
We got GB in the chat saying, thanks for the advice. Thank you, GB, for tuning in, man. We hope you're subscribed to the channel. Come back and hang out with us again. Super Bowl picks for me. If you say gun to the head, I'm saying who I said at the beginning of the year. It's boring. It's the chalk pick. But I can't go against the Chiefs and the Eagles right now. I just can't. I think it's going to be another Kelsey Bowl, man. Like the Eagles just feel like the team who's going to kind of do it on the NFC. I feel like injuries are going to catch up to the Niners like they always do. Other than that, I think Detroit has a really good team, but they're inexperienced, and I just don't think they can get – it's a lot to ask for, to go out of the playoffs. Yeah, it's a Super Bowl. So process of elimination, it's the Eagles for me. And while I love the Dolphins, it's just kind of a big jump to go from eliminated in the wild card round to going all the way to the Super Bowl. So it's tough for me. But I think the Chiefs, like, their defense is the best it's been in a while. They need to get the receivers and the offense going a little bit more. I think Tyler and they'll be a juggernaut. I really, and I hate to say that because I always root against the Chiefs. I always try to go contrarian picks with Super Bowl selections, but I got to go chalk here.
All right, so you go chalk, you go Chiefs and Eagles, and I'll go unchalk, and I'll go Kyle Shanahan meets up with his previous coach,
okay.
Mike McDaniels, in the Super Bowl, Niners, Dolphins.
Oh man, that would be. Imagine the Super Bowl week media interviews we're gonna get from Mike McDaniels. It's gonna be electric. I love that. Also, let's help the other Bradley twin out here. He has Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt on his bench. Who does he start this week? I know we saw some Kareem Hunt last week, and he looked spry at times, but I think it's Jerome Ford for me. I think it's just more workload. And honestly, like, they looked pretty good against a 49ers defense that is known to being quite the run stuffer up front. So I think Jerome Ford just has the higher volume and the higher floor here for me that I'm willing to risk it this week. Your thoughts, Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely Ford for me. Ford still got 50% snap share. He still averaged almost 5 yards per carry. Kareem Hunt, though he got the touchdown, was still sub 4 yards per carry. He was like 3.92. So he wasn't overly effective over Ford. And, they did ramp up his snaps a little bit. They gave him about 37, I think it was like 40%, which is about what they do. Like, if you look last year with Chubb, right, it's typically like a 60-40 in a Browns offense. And I think Ford is the 60.
Almost got 20 total touches last week, and I think that's interesting for Jerome Ford. He's not a guy who's going to win you your week, but I don't think he's going to lose it either. Don't get cute here, brother. Appreciate the question nonetheless. And here's the next question here we have from over at the forum as well. For years, we've been blaming the Chargers choking for Brandon Staley, that it's all on Brandon Staley. But there is a fun little stat that Justin Herbert has thrown 13 interceptions in one-score games in the fourth quarter. Defense is obviously an issue for Los Angeles, but is the time to start moving some blame now? What do you think about this, Tyler? Because I feel like when you're watching a Chargers game, if you're a fan of them or have fantasy assets with them, like, it's high anxiety because they're always going for it. They're always making these crazy decisions. And it seems like Brandon Staley doesn't get the most out of his talent. But Justin Herbert, at the same time, like, hasn't always been clutch in these situations. And I think it's very smart of our guy Fat Squirtle over here on the Fantasy Football Advice Network to point out that, like, there probably should be some blame. No one wants to blame Justin Herbert because he's kind of like the golden child, He's like the contrarian to Mahomes, but maybe there should be.
I struggle with it. I looked it up after I saw this question. Herbert is 27 for 28 as a overall record as a starter. So he's actually sub 500. And it's hard because it's not like he struggles to move the ball. He throws well. I mean, we saw that. I don't find it being Herbert, but then I find myself, like Anthony Richardson, for all those people that were talking about him last year. I was like, coming out of college, he couldn't even get 500. So, like, how does he lead a team? Like, how do you, like, a good player will raise the talent of a team. And when I look at his team, I see Keenan Allen, I see Austin Eckler. Now granted, he's not getting these people at the same time. Usually, like last year, we lost Allen, we had Eckler. This year we lost Williams, we have Allen and we have Eckler for half of the year so far, maybe. So I will say, in his defense, it feels like he never has all of his weapons. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's kind of the way that it feels. Yeah,
and man, I'll say Quentin Johnston, talk about a disappointment. They've needed someone to step up, and he is not. And it is I know sometimes it takes rookie wide receivers to get going, but we don't live in that era anymore, man. Like we don't live in that era. We're seeing people like Rashee Rice, Puka Nacua, guys with lower draft capital who are doing some really, really good stuff. Even like Jonathan Mingo has had some decent games. It's been nothing from Quentin Johnston in one of the best high volume offenses. So I think there's a lot of question marks with the Chargers, and I think maybe that's how we can chalk this up here. But don't give up, man, because I think it's going to get better. I think it's going to get better with the Chargers moving forward. They got Eckler back. Can they use Johnston? Palmer looked great on Monday as well.
Oh, yeah. If it wasn't for penalties, the Chargers win that game.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh Palmer's touchdown, it just – they got to get that in shape, which may be a Stanley thing.
Yeah. Here we got last question of the night here, and then we're going to let everyone go. Appreciate everyone tuning in. The sport's been awesome tonight. Thank you. Muth or Ertz, drop one. So, Smokey, we just spent about 3 or 4 minutes talking up Trey McBride, actually, here in our last segment in the scope. So, if you want more on McBride and how he outsnapped and outproduced Zach Ertz here last week, you can go back and check that out. But I think we might be seeing a changing in the guard for the Cardinals at tight end. So, I would say I'm dropping Ertz here. Tyler, how do you feel about it? Freiermuth just coming back off injury, so I didn't even know if he would be rostered for a lot of people here coming off this bye as well. But it is the Rams, and they got to get going in Pittsburgh, but it's a sluggish offense over there.
Yeah, rest of season, I like Muth. Muth is a safety blanket when he's on the field for Pickett, and so we saw good production. We've seen good production from Ertz, but I don't think we have anything to worry about with Moose snap share going down. We just need him to be healthy, and if he's healthy, I take him over Ertz.
Yep, I love that, man. Yeah, he was my all-in pick, so not looking great on that call, but either way, I can't go against him now. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us, man. Thank you to all the IBT family. And Tyler, tell us one more time how we can best support you and everything you have going on here this season and moving forward, my friend.
Look, you want to support me, go to fantasyfootballadvice.com and support the fantasy football community. That's what I need you to do. We're building a great community over there, a great place for people to ask questions like you have in the chat, just to hang out and talk fantasy football without all the other stuff.
Yes.
So just come, hang out, try it. Again, it's free to sign up. Everybody that we have had sign up through our live shows is using the mess out of it, whether they do pro membership or not. So, come over, try it out, hang out, give back to the fantasy football community with your great self being a part of it.
Oh yeah, we appreciate it, man. Last one here from Joseph, and then we'll round out. Hey, I traded Thielen for Puka last week, and already regretting it. Did I mess it up? It'll be okay, Joseph. Go back earlier in this show when we redrafted, and Puka was still a top 24 pick for us. Thielen is going to be a stud, but I think you trade up in value at least. So I think you'll be okay there. Just go back and you can watch more analysis on that. If you have more questions for us, Joseph, just go ahead and put those in the comments of this video, and we'll try to get those after the show later this week. So thank you guys all so much for tuning in. We hope you have a great rest of your week. We'll be back on Friday with some start sits, some sleepers, all that goodness. Until then, keep it in between. Subscribe to the channel. Come back and hang out with us again, and we'll catch you soon. Thank you all.